Hello and welcome to the Watering Hole. Thanks for checking out this clip. Don't forget to like and subscribe because that'll make the baby Jesus cry, and I know how much you guys love making the baby Jesus cry. Shall we get on to tweets?
Sure.
All right, the tweets might be a little bit janky because the whole reason I rearranged things is because I got tired of having to resize the tweets on the fly. So what I did was I put them in a slideshow, and I'm just going to go through a slideshow, but the slideshow should do the auto-fitting. Some of them are going to be a little bit small and hard to read, but it should be okay. So we start with Bridget Gabriel, always a favorite. It says, "The left is terrified of masculinity. It's a big part of why they hate Trump."
Why do they have AI-generated worker Trump with fucked up left-hand fingers?
Well, okay, so here's the thing. The fingers on this one for AI are actually quite good. But the work glove just kind of blends into his shirt. Like there's no glove. The glove becomes the shirt.
Yeah.
So that's kind of funny. But this is one of those images where the more you look at it, the worse it gets. One of the first things I noticed was there's that bar that goes across the top of the cab and then it goes down through the middle of the windshield and then comes back and ends in a side view mirror that's in the middle of the cab. What the fuck is up with that?
It's trying its best.
Yeah, and then there's what looks like, I don't know, a Nest security camera in the top left corner of the cab.
There's also something above. There's something above Trump's head that looks like a small computer speaker system, but it's inside. It's actually sitting on top of the edge where the door should connect.
Yeah. Yeah, no, there's no window in this truck. But so what I say to this is well, why are you using an AI generated image of Trump sitting in a truck when we have a real image of Trump sitting in a truck?
You should
that's what he looks like when he's in a truck.
Edit the tweet. Just edit the tweet to have that image of Trump there. The left fears masculinity, and it's just Trump LARPing a 12-year-old.
I will do that after the stream.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, no. And now we get Lobo. We were talking about Lobo behind the scenes earlier.
We were about things she thought she was doing behind the scenes.
Yeah, so this is from 2021. This is one of those tweets that age like a fine milk. It says, "Seems Joe Biden understands basic economics as well as he understands appropriate behavior around kids." So do you want to elaborate on what she was caught doing in a theater with kids in it?
So at the Beetlejuice musical in a theater with kids present as well, she was allegedly on camera.
Allegedly, we've all seen the video. Come on,
we've
sirs.
all seen the video.
Fuck off with that allegedly nonsense.
It's funnier to add the allegedly, though. It is.
She allegedly gave him an over the pants handy that you can watch for yourself.
With not one but two hands.
Yes.
You can see her twist and grab both hands there during the video while she's getting felt up the entire time.
And so for the record, the guy that she was given the over the pants handy to happens to own a bar that has drag shows. So the exact thing that she's against, she's jerking this guy off.
She went on fucking TMZ and tried to go, "Hey, this has taught me that you need to look at what kind of registered voter people you date are." I just bullshit. You didn't care whether he was a Democrat when you were giving him a handy. You just cared that he looked cute to you. As if things were going to get suddenly cleaner if it was a Republican.
Yeah, and it's this is one of those things where there's a part of me that wants to feel some sympathy for her because she's going through a divorce. It's a rough time in her life. Her husband, it's a matter of police record that her husband abused her before they were even married. I don't know why she married the guy when he abused her. It's also a matter of record that her husband, well, now ex-husband, exposed himself to minors in a bowling alley when he was I think he was 24.
Mm-hmm.
And he pled guilty to that. So this is not an allegedly scenario. This is her ex-husband exposed himself to minors in a bowling alley. We know this as a matter of public record. So like there is a part of me that wants to feel sorry for her, because like that's something that no woman should have to go through, is tolerating that sort of bullshit from a man. And too many women do go through that. So it's like, I want to be sympathetic, but like, that's not an excuse to give a guy a handy in a theater with kids in it.
No,
like,
it's not.
You're not a teenager. You're not some horn dog teenager who can't control it and whose brain hasn't finished developing yet. So when you ask, why did you do that? The answer, I don't know, is actually a truthful answer. It's like, that's the thing, I have teenagers in my home now, where it's like, sometimes I say like, why would you do that? And they say, I don't know. And that is the truthful answer, because their brains have not finished developing yet. It just seemed like a good idea at the time. Who knows why? Like they can clearly see now that it was a bad idea, but I don't know why I did that.
Now, the real answer as to why you did it, or why she did it, is going to end up somewhere between you thought doing something publicly was hot and risque.
Jasta says, but her brain hasn't developed. Yeah, this is the thing, though, is that like she is a member of Congress. She is someone whose job it is, in theory, to write the laws for the country. Now, she hasn't written a single law that's actually passed, but in theory, that's her job, is to write laws. So, like, someone that doesn't have the self-control to not give someone a handy in a theater is not the kind of person you want writing your laws.
No, because this is somebody who's going to be basically using their base impulses to determine public policy. Oh, wait, that's what she does.
Yeah, it's funny. It's actually really funny to me how much her and Marjorie Taylor Greene hate each other, because like they're the same person.
Yeah. I think that's why they hate each other. They hate the person in the mirror.
Yeah. It's getting all psychological and making me want to feel sorry for them again.
No.
Yeah, no. I don't actually feel sorry for them. They're just sometimes it's like, anyone else and I would feel sympathy.
This is one of those, like, the enemy of my enemy is actually just a different colored enemy.
Don't say different colored in that scenario. That sounded bad.
I mean, like in first-person shooters,
I know what
you team color.
I know what
Jesus
you mean.
Christ.
I know what you mean. But that's not that wasn't the first interpretation that hit my brain.
That's fair. I grew up on Halo.
Okay. I grew up on GoldenEye. We didn't have colored teams.
No, you had that one jackass that decided to play Odd Job. Yeah, that's who you had. That person that got kicked out of the fucking friend group. That's the guy you had.
Fucking Odd Job, man.
That's the person that said, hey, we can't play GoldenEye anymore, but we can play the Banjo-Tooie multiplayer. And then they just picked the fucking Jinjo, who's got the exact same model proportions as Odd Job in the exact same game by the same company.
I worked so hard to unlock all of the cheats for that game. Mm-hmm. I put so much effort into that. It was a lot of fun. I liked that game.
I'm replaying the Command and Conquer port on the N64 right now. Like my N64 in the bedroom is actually on because there's not save stating on a real N64, so that I can go back to it after the stream and keep playing.
Yeah, no, I have a real N64 on my console in the living room, and I also have GoldenEye. So we don't actually play that because N64 looks like shit on a 4K TV.
Just grab an upscaler.
Yeah, no. It's not about the upscaling. It's about like developer. Like there's a reason the hardcore classic game people will pay $5,000 for a CRT TV.
Mm-hmm.
Like game developers back then actually took advantage of the way CRTs worked to make their graphics look better in ways that, like, when you put it on a 4K high-res TV, upscaled or whatever, makes it look like fucking shit.
Oh, I know. I have various eras of TV. I have a CRT that this was plugged into, but that's currently being used by Arachne after we did the rescue shit months ago. And I don't feel like toting my CRT from that end of the house where it fits to my bedroom where there's nowhere for it to fit because it's a CRT and it's massive. So I've got the CRT for the N64. I just am not currently using it.
So not to completely derail the conversation, but going back to my previous issues with YouTube and the connection thing. OBS is now reporting that I'm streaming at 9 megabits per second instead of the 10 it was doing before, and YouTube now says I have an excellent connection. I don't fucking know.
What?
What the fuck?
Hey guys, did you know that Rhino and I both do this full time as our jobs? And we have no idea what the fuck we're doing?
Jethro Elfman says, can we please move on to the next tweet? Fine. We'll stay on topic. Fuck you.
We want to sit here and talk about N64
We both
games.
have fucking ADHD, man. What do you want?
Yeah, I'm not diagnosed, but I mean, let's be honest.
Nova Saber says, but Republicans are against CRT. We're talking
theory.
about cathode ray tubes, man, not critical race theory.
I used to call them cathode radion tubes.
Critical race tubes.
Is that like when you made the joke about I'm not racist, I have a color TV?
Did I make that joke? That doesn't sound like the kind of joke I would make.
No, not you. That was a common joke when I was a kid that people would make all the time when you would be like, "Hey, that's racist. I can't be racist. I have a color TV." Like, I don't think that makes you not racist.
That is such a stupid joke, but I kind of love it. I kind of love it. Okay, next tweet. Lauren Boebert again. The military is asking for the public's help in finding an F-35 jet that went missing. We're talking about an $80 million jet. This is what happens when military leaders are more focused on woke ideology than actually running a competent military.
Do they not realize that military personnel and equipment get lost under all leaders? Like, it doesn't matter who your commander-in-chief is. That happens sometimes.
So here's the thing. Okay, first off, it's pilot error. It was just some guy in a cockpit hit the wrong button or whatever the fuck mistake he made. The guy in the cockpit made a mistake. Whoopsie doodles. Yeah, whoopsie doodles, he crashed an $80,000 jet. But it's still just some guy made a whoopsie doodles. But if you want to blame it on the military leadership and having a competent military, maybe having a guy that's holding up 300 plus military promotions to key leadership roles so that he can score political points. Like, maybe he's the problem and not the wokeness. So, like, Tommy Potato Town.
Are you saying Superman doesn't have our best interests at heart as a nation?
Yeah, probably not. He's compromising national security so he can make a political grandstand thing. Like, this has nothing to do with the military being woke. Like, it was just a pilot made a mistake. But, like, if you want to blame military leadership, why don't you look at the guy that's holding up the promotions that would have to do with military leadership?
How to incite a military coup in the United States, 2023.
You copy Trump in 2020, what was it, 2021 or 2020 that he did the January 6th thing?
2021.
2021. That always messes me up because it was the 2020 election, but because it was January, it's the next year.
Yeah. God, I stayed up for 14 hours on stream when that was happening. Because like that happened while I was streaming, so I was just, I guess I'm not ending. I guess I'm just watching this.
Yeah, that was, I remember I was trying to work that day, but like the news broke and I'm like, okay, now I'm following the news. Like, what the fuck? And I actually remember I told my kids, this is your 9/11 moment. This is like, I remember exactly where I was when 9/11 happened. You are going to remember exactly where you were when this happened. And my daughter has since come out and like, yeah, I remember you saying that to me. I remember exactly where we were. I remember what we were doing. That was a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
It's like 9/11 happened when I was in grade, I want to say 10. And I remember I was in science class. It was Mrs. Trombley. And the other science teacher, Mr. Craven, came in to tell her what was happening. And I overheard him like whispering it to her because I was in the front row because I'm a fucking nerd. So of course I was in the front row in science class. And yeah, that's where I was in 9/11. And my daughter can tell me with similar detail where she was when I first told her what was happening in the Capitol on January 6th.
I was in grade school, leaving PCA, getting picked up by my mom, and my mom informed me about that. And the first thing that I said was, why didn't they tell us while we were in class?
Yeah, no, I don't think they told us when we were in class either. I just overheard it from the teachers.
Yeah, it was just, I don't think our teachers even knew at that time. Like, I mean, this was pre-internet era.
Yeah. So the Nova Saber says that's one of the only things I envy about the boomers is their "where were you" moment was the moon landing, not a tragedy. I can relate to that.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, Adam Broughton says 9/11 happened when I was in grade 13, OAC. I did OAC. That's an Ontario thing.
I don't know what that is.
That's the victory lap. You graduate in grade 12 from high school, and then you go back for another year.
Why do you go back for another year?
Because you don't want to go to college yet, because that involves making decisions. So you get like extra high school courses. You might get some of the AP college courses. You might get like if I don't know if it's structured differently in the States, but in Canada we have like there's the academic and applied. So you can take like biology academic and biology applied. So biology applied, like generally speaking, people consider the applied courses to be easier. Those are the ones where you actually do the stuff, whereas the academic is where you learn the details behind the actual doing. And so it's generally, the idea is if you're planning on going to university, you do academic. And if you're planning on going to college, you do applied. That's not universal, but like that's the general rule of thumb. So like maybe you did the applied courses and you want to go back for the academic courses. So you do the victory lap and you get the same courses in academic and then you can get into university instead of college.
Okay, that's fair. I guess I wonder if I would have done that in school at all if I had been given the choice. I think about it. I know that when I was leaving high school, the most exciting thing was the fact that I wasn't going back. And now that I'm gone, I'm like, kind of.
I miss school. School is
kind of. I miss school as well. Like I'm not gonna lie. There's a part of me that just wants to go to college, not because there's a particular career field that I want to go into. Like I'm in the career that I want to be in right now, but just to have the college experience, like just front and center. That's the only thing that my brain goes to.
My first thought when you said that was like, Cirrus, come on. We're in relationships. We're too old for the college experience. And like, no, you're poly. That might actually work for you. But yeah, no, I've missed out on the college experience. I've just accepted that because I was married in college. Well, I mean, when I say the college experience, I mean like specifically with regards to the relationship aspect and dating or whatever. Like I've had a total of like, I think 1, 2, 3 girlfriends. I've had 3 girlfriends in my life. My entire life. Married one, dated one for like a month, and now I'm basically married to the other one. We're living together and like I'm not a player. I don't play the field. I sowed my one wild oat. And I sowed my one wild oat after I'd been married for 15 years.
Jesus.
So, yeah, I don't know. I did the Tinder thing and it seemed like a lot of work. So it was like, and now my partner is in the chat saying we have no treats. I guess she's feeling a little peckish. Oh, she drank a cannabis bevy towards the beginning of the stream, so she's probably getting the munchies right about now.
That's fair. That's fair. I tried edibles for the first time about a week ago now, and I did not realize how bad the munchies would hit until no, this is never mind. I get it now. Yeah,
the only experience I have with edibles is the typical. It did nothing until it did everything, and then I thought I was going to die. So I didn't really experience the munchies. I experienced curled up in bed thinking I was about to die, trying desperately to go to sleep. Like knowing cognitively that I'm not going to die because nobody overdoses on weed. That's not a thing. So like cognitively, I'm like, I'm fine. But like emotionally, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. I'm going to die. So yeah, that was my experience with edibles. With the smoking thing, I don't really feel a lot, and I always have the munchies, so I don't know.
No real changes.
Like I could eat an entire fucking bag of chips right now.
I did eat chips because I started feeling lightheaded, and that's what I had.
Yeah. Anyway,
Bobo.
Back to this. Oh yeah, This is good. This isn't a tweet. This is what's his face? Fetterman. John Fetterman says,
"Oh, have you seen the conspiracy with him now, where they're just like, hey,
yes,
look,
I have.
The tattoos aren't on his arm.
He gained a little bit of weight, so he's not the same guy."
Jesus
like that's seriously it. He changed his facial hair, and his face has a bit more weight. But like, so I guess for medical reasons, he doesn't wear a suit and tie, and so they got them to change the Senate dress code rules so that he could not wear a suit and tie to the Senate. Which, you know, I'm fine with that. Like, I don't really see having your neck constricted as being a prerequisite to being able to like legislate properly.
I'm also not going to lie. The entire idea that you have to have a super high profile dress code when writing law is just like, let me just put on this mask real quick for everybody. This is not how I look 99.9% of the time.
Yeah. But so he says he kind of calls the Republicans out for their really messed up priorities, saying like, if those jagoffs in the House stop trying to shut our government down and fully support Ukraine, then I will save democracy by wearing a suit on the Senate floor next week. So it's like, because they're all complaining about him not wearing a suit. Like, I can't believe he wouldn't wear a suit and tie. It's the end of democracy as we know it. Meanwhile, let's support fucking Russia for some reason. You know, that country that, like, in every action movie from the 90s is obviously the bad guy because it's fucking Russia. Of course they're the bad guy.
You go from having a Cold War with them to going, no.
Like,
I like the potato water that comes out of their dicks.
No, man, like, Russia is, like, the quintessential anti-American country. But for some reason, the GOP just, like, seamlessly transitioned to, no, Russia's great. We support Russia taking over Ukraine for some fucking reason.
So there was a document, I wish I could find it again, but I went over it on stream a year ago with, ironically, my friend Nick, a game apologist. And it was a document that was put together by MI6 about the way that Russia was going to divide the United States and the wedge issues it was going to use to divide us.
And it's exactly the ones they did?
Part of their plan literally was getting the Republican Party, or getting a party, to side with them, and the wedge issues being abortion, LGBTQ issues, trans rights, just like going down the list. All shit that we've seen go under fire in the last 2 or 3 years.
Sirs, did you just say the GOP is a Russian puppet?
I may have said something
allegedly.
Allegedly. They're
allegedly a Russian puppet.
Allegedly Russian.
Sources say they're a Russian puppet,
and it's really weird as well.
The source in this case is Cirrus.
No, the source in this case is an MI6 document. I can't remember where the fuck it is.
Yeah, so since you can't remember the fucking document, you're the source. You have become the source.
I've become the source. Guys.
Okay,
just remember,
Jimmy in my chat is a little bit behind, I think, because I just got LMAO odd job. Welcome, Jimmy.
Odd job was the Russian source.
Hope you're watching on 2 times speed. You'll catch up eventually.
Yeah, just remember, everything the GOP gets mad about, Christopher Rufo told them to get mad about like a week ago.
Yeah. Kevin Sorbo says, the government that just lost an F-35 thinks you aren't responsible enough to own guns. Those things aren't mutually exclusive. Like, I mean, most Americans that own guns are probably not responsible enough to own guns. Did you see that video? I forget what it was, but it was like some guy trying to teach his girlfriend how to shoot. And, like, after she fired a bunch of rounds, he was like, okay, that was pretty good. Now try again. And she immediately, like, turns to him facing the camera that he's holding with the gun.
Holding the fucking gun.
And he's like freaking out, why are you fucking doing that? Because, like, she didn't know better than to point the gun at him.
Yeah, he didn't. So he didn't tell her about proper trigger safety or anything like that beforehand, right?
I imagine he did. She just forgot or whatever. But it's like, that's kind of the point, is that you need to have proper training to be able to remember that. Like, you can't just accidentally point a loaded gun at someone.
I mean, as somebody who's actually had a shotgun pointed at himself when I was a kid, that's a fucking terrifying thing.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, if their finger slips a little bit, I'm just gone. That's not a pleasant thought.
Nope, it's not.
And like, it's not like the whole government was irresponsible and that's why the F-35 went missing. And also, like, the F-35 is a stealth fighter. Like, it's designed to be hard to find.
It went missing because like, that's what the engineers wanted it to do.
You lose the pilot, the guy who's going to take it back to where it belongs, and now you can't find it because it was engineered to not be found. Duh. Like, that just means the people who designed the F-35 were good at their jobs.
Jesus.
The Nova Saber says, why do conservatives only consider the military a part of the government when they're talking about it negatively? Because conservatives ostensibly want less government. So if they talk about it positively, it has to be when they're doing something that they like. So if they've lost an F-35, then that's when the military is part of the government. So we need to restrict the government. But when the military is invading a country I don't like, that's when the military is not part of the government. They're the military protecting democracy.
I found the MI6 document.
You just don't want to be the source.
I'm not the source. The source is Intelligence and Security Committee of Parliament on Russia from 2017.
Oh, yeah, but that's after Trump was in office, so that's clearly just an anti-Trump propaganda document.
I'm gonna fucking shoot myself. I'm gonna exercise proper trigger safety.
Not on the stream, sir, so I want to keep this monetized.
Y'all wouldn't see it anyway.
We were talking about
YouTuber
God
avatar.
and Jesus being into BDSM shit earlier. This ain't going to be monetized. Who are we kidding?
You know what the best part is? I bet you the version of this that makes it up on my channel will be monetized. Somehow.
No, you know what? I actually have a really good history of like accurate self-reports, so if I tell it to monetize it, it'll probably listen to me. I don't know. Doesn't matter. Okay, Nick Storm says, we're having so much fun and this is a big reason we are winning. So, and Christian nationalists are just having fun running around outside, and then the anti-Christian nationalists are in the window looking at them through the dark blinds or whatever. It's like, yeah, the reason you guys are having fun is because you aren't the ones whose rights are being taken away. Like, here's the thing. You give LGBTQ people equal rights to everybody else, Christian nationalists still have the same rights that they have now.
Mm-hmm.
But if Christian nationalists get their way, then suddenly LGBTQ people aren't legally human beings. So, like, yeah, the anti-Christian nationalists are not having fun with the fact that you want to make them not human beings, legally speaking. Like, being categorized as subhuman is not fun.
I imagine there were at least some Nazis who had some fun at the camps.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that they were the ones on the right.
No, it does not. They also didn't win in the end.
Nope. Amazing how that works.
Have you seen that meme that's like God saying like, okay, you know what? Whoever kills Hitler gets a free pass into heaven. And then Hitler, like second panel is just God being like,
just imagine you're Hitler in this moment.
Scott
do it in case of demonetization.
Sent $10 in case of demonetization. Thank you, Scott. I appreciate that.
Hitler does the thing Hitler did at the end of his life, and you just see KDA K1D1A giant fucking number, depending on who you count.
Yeah. All right, Frank Turek. When you think you have a scientific consensus that miracles don't occur, you don't have a scientific consensus based on the evidence. You have a scientific consensus based on the bias against the miraculous because they've already decided that miracles don't occur.
But wait, if you have a scientific consensus that miracles don't occur, it's because we've not witnessed a miracle.
It's because no, it's not even that. It's because definitionally speaking, miracles can't occur. If
because
miracles
would be a violation.
if a miracle was scientifically possible, it would not be a miracle. A miracle is, by definition, a violation of scientific possibility. So the fact that scientific consensus is that miracles don't occur is that's just an observation of how the universe works. Because if a miracle obeyed the laws of science, it would cease to be miraculous. Like, yeah, we might be able to take some of our technology, go back in time 500 years, and people might think we were gods or whatever because we could perform these weird miracles. But, like, ultimately, if they study them, there are scientific explanations for how we were doing that shit. Like, the fact that we can talk to, like, you live in Georgia and I live in Canada, and we can talk to each other in real time while streaming our conversation to audiences across the globe. Like, that's scientifically impossible in the 1500s. That's miraculous. But, like, there are scientific explanations for this.
I mean, hell, if you mentioned that this was something we could do even back in the 20s when radio was the primary form of communication for, not communicating, but like disseminating information, this would still be considered an impossibility.
Yeah.
Because we're doing it with video.
Yeah, like fucking, like, I grew up in the 90s when, like, you remember that scene in The Simpsons where a comic book guy is trying to look at the naked picture of Captain Janeway and it's like loading bar by bar, and then it finally gets to her boobs and it gets an ad on her boobs instead of her actual boobs. That's the era of internet that I grew up in. I remember the reason to save porn to your hard drive was so you didn't have to wait for it to load again.
I remember growing up watching Pokemon and seeing the anytime Ash would call his mom, they'd have the video call, thinking, "Oh my god, that's amazing technology."
I remember watching Star Trek in the 1990s and seeing them, like, walk up to a door and the door automatically opens, being like, "Oh, it would be kind of neat when we develop that technology." Because, like,
and then you go to your local Walmart, and there it is.
That wasn't common in the 90s. Like, yeah, it existed before the 90s, but, like, I live in a fairly small town, so we didn't really have it. And it wasn't motion sensor. It was like those pressure plates where you had to, like, go stand on the plate, and then as you're you had to, like, stand there on the plate and wait for the door to open. It's not that it saw you coming and opened in advance and you could just keep walking. So, like, even the ones that did have that, it was shittily implemented. So, like, I remember thinking, like, hey, that's a pretty cool futuristic technology that we all have access to now.
That we don't even think about.
Yeah. So since the automatic door tech was pretty common, like, not in my area when I was growing up. My mother actually has stories of time, like, after it started to become fairly commonplace, there were still a couple stores in my area that didn't have it. And she'd get used to the automatic doors, and there were a couple times when she, like, walked straight into a door because she just expected it to open for her, but it didn't. But that was, like, as it was progressing and becoming more common. Like, yeah, no, I remember that not really being a thing in the 90s.
Fennec the rabbit going, "Vice Rhino, are you old?"
No, I'm not old.
You're only as young as you feel.
Oh, so I'm fucking old then.
Yep, there you go. There you go.
Oh, goddamn. Yeah, so miracles by definition are a scientific impossibility. So scientific consensus will always be that miracles don't happen, even if they do happen, just because of the definition of miracle.
Because once they go into the realm of possibility, they're not a miracle anymore.
Yeah, and that's the same reason why you can't prove a miracle historically, because it will like the science of piecing together what history actually happened from the documents that we have recording it is one of probabilities. What most likely happened given the evidence that we have from the various sources that we have for this event. And when something records a miracle, 100% of the time, it will be more likely that the person that wrote it down was either lying or mistaken. Or they were just repeating a story that they heard.
Kind of reminds me, there was a documentary that I saw on the History Channel on the 10 Plagues of Egypt that was going through how the 10 plagues could have actually happened while being scientifically possible. Like, in the order that they occurred and why they would have happened. Even down to, like, going, hey, the firstborn of Egypt dying could have been a thing that happened because of all the shit that was happening with the other plagues, affecting mostly ground level stuff at that point. And the firstborn classically slept on the ground level, whereas people, the older generations would sleep at the higher levels of the house. It's just an interesting documentary that went through like, hey, this could have happened. Here's how.
Yeah, but I mean, given that there's no evidence that Egypt ever had a significant number of Hebrew slaves, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that whole story is fiction.
Right.
But the point is that fiction is a thing that we know exists. So the idea that someone wrote something that was fiction as opposed to it actually being a miracle, like someone writing fiction will always be more probable than it actually being a miracle. So that's why you can't use historical documents to prove a miracle.
Do we have anybody after Frank Turek is the question.
Cindy Johnson is, I guess she's still behind in the stream, says, you're both so young, I was in the Pentagon on 9/11.
Oh.
Dr. Tasha says, fiction exists? You made that up.
That would make it fiction.
Yeah. Now we have I Hypocrite.
Oh, God, this fucker.
Yeah, no, this fucker's a fucker. But, like, this meme was hilarious to me because, like, they have know the difference. Working class, actual labor, long hours, produces goods and value for society. And the jobs that they have there, we have resources and construction. Okay. Farmers. Okay. Manufacturing. Okay. Landlords. What actual labor does a landlord do?
Like, what are they producing?
Like, calling a fucking plumber when you have a clog? Like, that's not labor. Like, okay, as someone who has ADHD and has trouble with like some of the tasks that involve like calling people and like contacting people for stuff like that, I could consider that labor, but like that's not the typical thing that these people mean by that. But then they have like the working, like, quote unquote working class, easy and pointless work, maximum 8 hours, but most work less, produces nothing for society. We've got fast food workers, restaurant workers, service workers, and retail workers.
So notice people who get the shit end of the stick by everybody constantly all the time.
Here's the thing. I've done grunt work. Like I've worked in fast food. I've done shit like that. I've done management level stuff. The management level stuff is way easier than the grunt work. Like working, like I have like the harder the work, the actual work that I've done, the lower the pay, generally speaking. The hardest I've ever worked has been for minimum wage. Now, yeah, I think I've done just about every single job that's in that right panel. And every one of them were fucking grueling. And I'm not saying this to shit on resources and construction or farmers or manufacturing or whatever, but I've never worked harder than when I was getting paid less. Like the higher paying jobs are easier jobs to do. If the emotional labor of dealing with the 15th Karen to tell me that it's my fault personally that the prices on her asparagus have changed. If that's not work, but calling the plumber is work, I don't want to live on this planet anymore. So John73 John says, if you take shit from Karens on a regular basis, you don't have a real job. This just in, I Hypocrite is actually a Karen. This is the reason he's doing this. Lord of Uzkalak says they only work less so that employers can avoid legally having to give them benefits and a full-time employee is entitled to. Yeah, that's a huge problem with people like only giving people part-time hours so they don't have to give them benefits. Now, to be fair, in my last years as a server, I was the guy who I was at the top of the seniority chart, and every time it was like, oh, it's not that busy tonight. Does anyone want to go home early? I'd be like, yep, me. And I'm at the top of seniority, so you got to pick me first. Because that job fucking sucked. I mean, because it was good money, but
paid for it.
It was good money, but when I was making the equivalent money on my channel, I'm like, I'd rather go home and make a video, man. Like, that's something I'm actually passionate about.
I mean, the worst thing you deal with as a content creator, typically, not counting like people sending death threats via email, is burnout. Which I'm just going to say, burnout is better than Karen's. Burnout is better than Karen's.
Burnout is, I would rather deal with burnout than deal with, like, one of the things that I absolutely hated was the restaurant that I worked at had like 6 main sections. And like, there were the 4 desirable sections and the 2 undesirable sections. But one of the 2 undesirable sections was fucking massive. And it wasn't undesirable because you didn't make money there, because you made a shit ton of money there because you had way too many tables. But it's like, it was a shit ton of work. And the thing is, it was in like a not good section of the restaurant that nobody wanted to sit in. So you get the miserable people, and you have lots of the miserable people because they want to go sit up at the front where the good view is. And because of my personality, like, I can't fucking fake it. Like, I will either jive with you or I won't. If I don't jive with you, I'm just not going to make the small talk. I'll be there. I'll take your order. I'll check on you. I'll be perfectly polite. I'm not going to be a bad server, but like, I'm not going to pretend like we're getting along when we're not. And so like, occasionally I'd have tables where it's like, yeah, we jive and everything's great. And I'm like, they think I'm the greatest server because like, we just kind of melded, like we just kind of meshed. It's fine. But for most people, I was a mediocre server. So as kind of punishment for that, I would always get put in the bad sections. And one of them was the like, you make lots of money because you get all the tables and they feel obligated to tip because like fucking tipping culture is bullshit. And, you know, they're making customers subsidize your wages for you instead of just, you know, paying a living wage. But like, it was a nightmare. I fucking hated it. So when they said, "Hey, who wants to go home early?" I'm like, "Yeah, fuck, I'm out of here because you guys always put me in this shitty section." And like, I get it. I'm not the guy that you want in your prime section because I can't pretend to be jiving with everybody because I'm not good at lying. Anyway,
and yet
restaurant work sucks. Is my main point.
I don't like Guy Hypocrite. I don't like him at all.
So, frankly speaking, says my dad retired in the 80s. His old Pentagon office was where the plane crashed on 9/11. That's, Jesus. I mean, that's still 20 years off from the retirement, but like, still, like to have a plane crash into your old office.
I mean, it's a story you get to tell. It's not great, but.
Anyway, I think this might be the last tweet. Yeah, that's the last tweet.
Aha, we did it.
We did.
We're not 20 minutes over this time.
We made it through. We're only 4 minutes over.
Hey, better than 20.
I thought we were still early, actually. Shows you what kind of sense of time I have. There's that ADHD time blindness thing.
Oh, yeah. Oh, right. Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining me tonight. And as always, fuck off.